right, here we are. Well, good morning. I'm Jen Hurd, and welcome back to the Thrive Through Life Change event, where we're going to learn how to regain powerful personal energy, create an inspiring vision, and a balanced life while going through or anticipating a major life change. And also in spite of everything going on in the world around us right now. So how this came about is I'm a professional organizer, and I have been for 30 years. And I decided over the COVID forced vacation to create an event that, like I've always worked one-on-one with clients, and they're usually always going through some kind of major life change. So some would successfully transition to this next phase of their life really, really well. And others would have a real problem with getting stuck. And I just realized that as I had time to think and was home over the break, that I really needed to create something to help people on a larger scale, number one, and number two, help them process better and move through these changes more smoothly. So this is content I can add to my clients as well and promote to them. And the linchpin to the whole thing was I had a client who was expecting something to happen, and then the COVID lockdown occurred, and she couldn't have done what she needed to have done, and she literally laid down on her bed, and they found her, she passed away. And I'd been working with her for just a few weeks, but she was such a joyous and vibrant person that I said, okay, enough of this. You know, we need to snap out of this. And I got extremely motivated. You know, we can't let things overcome us. We can't be overcome by a challenge that is simply that, a challenge. And we need to, you know, I just wanted to help people with their perspective and to pull through things and not just lay down and literally die over what, you know, they anticipate to be the case, when it may not even ever happen that way. So these experts that we've gathered are just, they're hitting it out of the park, and they're really interesting, amazing people who have had such amazing life experiences and training, and they're here to offer back to you, our audience, some points, some tips and tricks and things that you can do. So without further ado, got Lois Wagner here, and she is a certified conversational intelligence coach, CI coach, and a facilitator, and she runs individual and group coaching interactions and immersion workshops. She's also an executive business mentor, leadership development and HR consultant, and she does training facilitation as well in marketing, occupation directed education, executive coaching, all kinds of areas of coaching. So she's very diversely skilled. She's a South African businesswoman with extensive experience in a lot of different business environments. And she does mentoring, training. She makes it real and fun and memorable. So she's a proponent of lifelong learning and development, as am I hugely. So I think that you'll really enjoy Lois. And so Lois, I'm so excited to talk to you today. Let's jump in. You have lived all over the world and worked as a trainer across a lot of industries, as we just mentioned. So let's talk about, this is something that struck me when I found you online, was about learning about resilience through change. When change is happening, how can we be more resilient?
Sure. Well, I think resilience comes because of change. You know, change either comes to us through choice, through chance, or through crisis. And if it comes to us through chance or crisis, then we build resilience to help us manage it. But at the end of a crisis, you've got resilience. So coming out of this pandemic, I think most people are going to have a huge degree of resilience.
I hope so. I hope that's what happens, and it's not just bitterness. Because I feel like online people are so just angry and full of vile for one another and for the situation. And I just feel like there's got to be a way to come through without your energy being so negative, you know, to get back to that uplifting positivity that people used to have. Hoping they can find it again. But I think that another really important quality that you mentioned is that people can learn from every experience. So, absolutely. Yeah, what are some examples there? I really would love to talk to you about this part.
Well, first of all, I say that resilience is bouncing back. You know, it's important that one understands that definition. So resilience is getting back to where you were before your challenge or before your adversity. Yes. And it's a skill that we use to adapt and to recover from where we were.
Yeah.
The experience we have impacts on us, and we need to understand what we gain from that experience as well as what we lose through that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So, sorry, your question was?
So when you're learning from those experiences, I guess it's that adaptive trait that people have to work on, right? Being able to adapt.
Absolutely. You need to learn to do different things, and you need to learn to do things differently. It's
Ah,
important that we become very flexible as we go through that resilience stage, because resilience is about it's about courage, it's about creativity, it's about returning to meaningful life. And how do we do that? We have to be creative in order to do that.
yeah. And I think that creative piece is so important because I guess it just depends if you're more a right brainer or a left brainer. You know, if you're left brainer, your systems change and it throws you out of whack. And then I think that's the right way. And if you're a right brainer, you're creative and maybe you can think your way out of it in a more creative way. But you have to balance that, those kind of sides of the brain, and create a new system, but use your creativity to do it, and to not be so attached to the old system or the old whatever the paradigm was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still at the same time, so if you talk left brain, and I rather talk about a whole brain,
Whole brain, yeah, yeah.
but the logical side of the brain, it's about taking control. Whereas the creative side of the brain is about that creativity, looking for new ways of doing things. I talk about reframing and refocusing. So, as in photography, you're looking through your lens,
Yeah.
change your focus, change your frame, move it around a little bit, and look at it through a different lens.
Yeah. Or instead of being in like microscopic telephoto, widen out your angle so you can see the
Totally,
whole picture, right? Right. Or the
totally.
historic, like reframe it in terms of history, or, I think the storytelling part, the stories we tell ourselves, that's a huge part of it. Or the perspective in the story, who's telling the story, etc. You can look at it that way too.
And
um
that's certainly one of the ways to start building resilience, is to share your story, is
ah
to either write it down, tell somebody about it. A lot of people don't want to share their stories publicly,
yeah,
but tell your dog or your cat if you don't want to tell it to a person. But by
yeah,
sharing your story, getting it out of you, you sharing it with the universe, and the universe takes some of that responsibility.
yeah. Oh, I agree. I think that social media has enabled a lot of people to come from a place of being, well, a lot more true to who they are. I think like a lot of people use it and they really do tell their story. A lot of people, they fake it. But I think it's given people an opportunity that like to be public about their story, or that feel they need to be, to help other people who maybe aren't, at least watch them go through it and successfully, process it. So I think that that's helped a lot. The television, I'm sure, helped a lot when it first started, because people could tell their story again, and people like on Phil Donahue or Oprah, or one of those shows where people would say, oh, that's me. They would be hiding with their secret, but there was somebody out with it and you could see it. So I think that that's offered us a lot more opportunity to see how, maybe part of it is, if you can't figure a way out, there's probably a way online, that somebody's gotten through it because somebody's put something up about it. And that's, I think, nice. We're not as isolated as we might have been in our.
I like the expression, you're not alone. There are
Yeah,
so many groups, and if you're needing therapy, there are hundreds and hundreds of different types of modalities and therapies and resources. So what works for one person may not work for you. Go looking. There's something out there that will definitely work for you.
yeah. Tell me a little bit, speaking of different types of training and modality, I just want to learn for a quick minute about this conversational intelligence, the basic method of that. How does that help in your training?
It's really just about using the right language, using positive language, future focused language. You can call it positive thinking in a simplistic form, but it does go a bit deeper than that. It's
Sure.
very important. It's like you say, I'm not successful. I'm not
Mhm.
successful yet.
Right.
Okay. Just gives you
Yeah.
that edge. It's about saying, um, we're going to do this and rather that we're going to do this but. So it's getting rid of those negative words,
Ah.
words like but and don't. You know, don't, you say to your little child, don't drop mommy's crystal vase. And what does the do? The first thing they do is they drop the crystal vase.
Yeah, they only hear the rest of the sentence.
It's about finding the right language, and then it's how you use that language to influence and co-create with other people rather than going it alone. You know, the whole concept of team approach, it definitely works.
Yes. Oh, that's fascinating. I think that language is so important. I know a big change for me was looking at something. I mean, I grew up in the era where if you were doing a math problem, it was called a problem. And so the word problem was used more pervasively. And now I really like the fact that we've changed the word problem to a challenge, because I think that that says, you know, this is not a problematic situation. This is a challenging situation. This is something we have to really think about and put our heads together and come up with a solution, like that kind of language. I really like those changes.
It's also when people talk about doing a SWOT analysis, you do your strengths and weaknesses. I don't like that at all. I'd
Yeah.
rather look at your strengths and your challenges rather than your weaknesses.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, there are certain things I guess you have to consider just in case, but really honestly the focus of it. Yeah, I've never really enjoyed doing those as an MBA. Those are like, you know, a major tool, and I've set those aside a lot and just really done, yeah, the strengths, the where are we going, you know, more the visioning, and the rest you can pull through. You can, if you can pin the right vision, you can pull through to it, you know, with the rest. Awesome. I love this conversation. So I know in one of your videos, because I made a special note about this, you talk about believing that you matter. Um, where does that statement come from? That, and I know there's people that believe that they don't on some level. And so how can we help people reframe that in this trial that they're going through, that they don't matter in the trial?
It starts with your limiting beliefs and beliefs, the rules that you were taught as a child. You know, in my case, my father always said, you don't need to study. You become a secretary, marry your boss, sit on your boss's knee and marry him. And because you're going to have to work hard for a living.
Right.
And, you know, it's difficult to make money. And so I was brought up with that belief that I'm never going to make money. I'm never going to amount to much because that's what was my self-belief. So
Right.
it's so important that we get to understand who we are, believe in your own strengths, understand that self-awareness. And I start a lot of my work with self-awareness. Who are you and what are your aspirations? Looking at where you want to go, not where society or stereotyping says you should be or who you should be. And so I'm very strong on understanding those limiting beliefs and understanding who you are.
Yeah, definitely. And part of that is once you can frame who you are and what your strengths are, getting mentally tough, so that when you encounter something that you can rally and deal with that. So let's talk a little bit about mental toughness and how you develop that.
Okay, well, before mental toughness, after resilience, for me comes grit.
Grit.
And
Oh, yes.
resilience is bouncing back to where you were before your adversity, whereas grit is bouncing forward into a new reality.
Yes.
And that is, you know, we had the reframe and the refocus of resilience. In grit, you start redirecting. So here you start focusing on your aspirations, on your dreams, on your goals, and you start finding a new reality where you want to go to. And part of that then is about learning, continuing this lifelong learning, continuing to broaden your mind, broaden your experience, meet new people. And that is what develops that growth mindset. That you say, you know, you could stay there after resilience. You can say, well, I'm back to where I was. Life is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that is a static mindset. A growth mindset is saying, what comes next? How
Yeah.
can I get grit to go forward and develop my growth mindset? And there's even a step after growth mindset, which is benefit mindset. And that is where you use what you've learned through the growth and you start giving back to your communities.
Yes.
because you now have learned and you've got something to share. You've got something to tell people. You can help other people, be it in a business which is what I do, or it can just be something you do voluntarily. It's just helping other people and giving back to the community.
Yes, I think that's important. And that also creates a cycle that you matter because you're giving back, you're helping, and then that builds more of the way in which you matter. And it helps, I think, strengthen that in your mind, right? Going from I'm insignificant to wait, but I'm significant. Like people who volunteer for a Boys and Girls Club and they help children who maybe don't have parents who are involved and those kind of things. If you're not feeling strong about yourself, go be strong for somebody else. You know what I mean? And then it will build that in you. It will build that benefit. You're giving a benefit away, but the benefit comes back to you tenfold in that you continue to matter as well to someone else. And I think that's huge.
And
I
well,
think
I discovered that in my 60s.
a
So
lot of people don't. Yeah, a lot of people are just spinning their wheels and they just plod through their days. But when you find that that sweet spot where you're taking what you've learned and you're able to affect change with people and help them, it's huge. It's like a quantum leap in your, I don't know, in your self-worth, I think a little bit too, and in your confidence, you know, because you've come through something and you've successfully navigated it, and then you're also able to share that. I think
as long as you've learned from it as well, what were those lessons? You know, what were the benefits of it? Because there's always benefits from a hardship. What were the lessons you learned, and you know what can you do with it? So yes, definitely learn from your experiences.
definitely. And I know you also mentioned about this is another thing that was in one of your videos about having a fundamental belief that the future is good. Because I think right now, just in this particular crisis, people are so, you know, 2020 is terrible. They're just chalking up 2020. And they're just, the negativity is really spiraling. And I feel like we have to remember that there's good in all seasons. You know, there's always good if you look for it, I guess. What do you have to say about that? The belief that the future is good.
Well, 2020 has been a tough year for many. It's also been a great year for many because we've learned, how many people have learned technology? How many people have learned to appreciate what they
Right.
never appreciated before? Look what's happening with nature, what's happening, things coming back, fish and bird life and things coming back.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much good that is happening, and the whole entrepreneurial spirit is alive and thriving. And yes, some of us are really going to struggle, and it's going to take us a while to bounce back to where we were financially or in terms of our business. And it definitely is a journey that we're going to go through. But 2020 vision is a good thing. So
Yeah.
2020 is not a bad year.
I like that. 2020 vision is a good thing. It's true. I mean, it did a lot for me because I had to, you know, with the quarantine, I was on site 6 days a week and I went to a screeching halt. But what it did for me was it forced me to think, well, I'm just working one-on-one every day, but I know I could affect a much bigger change. And it allowed me to think about what that could be. And I'm really hoping, like in my mind, I'm optimistic because I'm thinking, well, if I did that, imagine how many entrepreneurs did that while they had this time. And I know there's people who took advantage of it. And I know there's like amazing leaps and bounds going to come out and maybe some new technologies or new inventions or whatever, because people had time to think about it, you know, and it took them, it kind of ripped them out of their current reality. And they went, but wait, there's something I could improve or something I could do. So I'm hopeful. That's just sort of my wiring though. But it does get a little bit daunting listening to the negativity that's out there every day, just especially in the US with political and other things. It's a little bit of a drag.
Well, that brings me to the next step, because
Yeah.
what we need to do is we need to learn to forgive. You know, we need to forgive whoever started this pandemic. We need to forgive the governments for the decisions, some of them totally illogical decisions that have been taken, to forgive bosses that have had, you know, had people lose their jobs. To, you know, there's a lot of forgiveness to do, and a lot of self-forgiveness that you didn't take the initiative to do something more positive. So
Yes.
forgiveness is such a powerful, powerful technique to reach that freedom to go forward into your new future. So I work very, very strongly with forgiveness as a tool to freedom.
I think that that's so necessary. I think that people carry a lot of shame and guilt. And I know a lot of people have said, I couldn't function during this. I was too frightened. I didn't leave my house, and I watched a lot of Netflix, and I just hunkered down with my kids, and that's all I did. And I think too, you have to allow yourself to be where you are. Some people may have done these leaps and bounds things, and other people, what their highest and best function that they can manage at that time is what they managed and continue to, because I think we'll probably have to encounter this again in the fall. And if their mindset doesn't change and they're still, that's where they are, then I think, yes, you have to forgive yourself and allow yourself to be where you are, because it doesn't do you any good to beat yourself up. They say too that women kick ourselves a lot more than men. We compare ourselves a lot. We're out there online, and I know this. I know I have friends and I have clients that do this too. They're online and they're like, oh, well, these people have this, I have to have this, or I have to do this, or whatever. And that constant comparison, if you're not, A, you're not them, and B, you don't know what their life is behind closed doors either. But forgive yourself for that, or just let yourself.
It's important that you know that you're on this very convoluted journey, and it goes up and down and backwards and forwards. And when you're in certain phases of that journey, you can't forgive, or you can't bounce forward, because if you're still in that sheer survival mode, it's about surviving, it's about making the money, or getting well emotionally or physically, whatever it is your adversity has been. So when you're in that phase, you can't go to those more lofty ideals, the growth mindset and the forgiveness. You're not ready for it yet, and that's fine. And you might get halfway up to the growth mindset and something triggers you and you fall all the way back down into victimhood or into survivor mode. So it is a convoluted journey, and it's important that you know that it's your journey, and whatever speed it takes and whatever ups and downs you have, it's absolutely fine. It is your journey, and don't let other people tell you you shouldn't be at that phase.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I had a counselor when I went through my divorce, and she said, don't should on yourself. Like, just don't do that. You can't have an expectation when you just are in that place, So I tell that to people all the time. I tell that to clients all the time. I'm like, do not do that. The should is not a word that we should be using against ourselves like a weapon. It's just not right.
Yeah. The what if only I hadn't done that.
Oh.
What if I had done this? And it doesn't help.
Yeah. You have to stay present in your present and not second guess yourself, because at least at the time you made a decision, for right or for wrong.
Yep,
you made a choice, live with your choice, and now you get to make another choice, today, on how you're going to feel about it, how you're going to respond to where you are now, and what your next steps will be. That's at least how I operate, because I'm a single parent. There's decisions I have to make every day that I think, okay, I hope this is right. I don't have that other spouse to bounce it off of, right? So I've really, and I've been a single parent for a long time, and some people are newly single parents. That can maybe be your life change that you're going through, viewer, and you don't second guess. Just make your decision and confidently live in that decision, is what I tell people. And then you take the next step and make the next decision based on where you are then. But I was one who always sort of guilted myself, because I put my daughter in that situation and my relationship and everything else. And it certainly wasn't by choice, but it took a long time to get to where I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel remorse or whatever. And then I could just live each day and take those steps. And then now it's interesting, it's kind of snowballed, because she's gotten older, things have changed. And now, there's momentum. You get momentum eventually, So here, one last question here, and then I want to talk about some of the fun things you have offered to our audience, which I think are great. Wanted to talk about during the COVID crisis, which we talked about a little bit. What's something that you've learned that's a good technique to deal with some of these big changes? What's a technique people can use when they anticipate or see something coming at them quickly that they know is going to happen, and they're really, frightened, scared, unnerved about it? How can they set their mind?
I really believe the reframe, refocus, and redirect is so important. It's changing your dialogue, changing the discussions and how you see those things. If I take my story, I was raped and attacked and left for dead. And I changed the focus, and I said, this is wrong. It happened at a time before, before the Me Too movement and before everybody was talking about, it wasn't something that was of public awareness, really. And so I decided to make a difference, and I became an activist, and I changed. I was angry. The man who raped me was out on bail from a previous rape, and it just made me so angry that the law was wrong. And so instead of pitying myself, I went out there to make a difference, and I changed I reframed it. I refocused my attention on making a difference. Yes. And went out there and then redirected to where I am now. Redirected. It took a number of years to do the redirection.
It does, yeah.
But I redirected and of using that experience in my work today. In the meantime, I did lots of other jobs and had many other careers before that, which all adds to help to that grit and resilience, I must say.
It does. It does. I have a very diverse experience as well. But I think, they say, like, for example, if Bill Gates hadn't taken a calligraphy course in college, calligraphy, right? Who would have thunk it? We wouldn't have fonts today on the computer because he came up with the different fonts, right? Or the idea for it. Now there's all kinds of people who invent fonts, but sometimes you have to have an unusual or eclectic occurrence, and it just all fits together with your life and what that give is that comes from you, But I love that you protected other people, that you fought to protect other people by having the law change so that, they couldn't get out or hurt other people. I think that that's huge. And that's the thing that we can all do in these times is, look for where there's an injustice or a hurt or how we can lift other people up, because there are people even now. I know I've done a lot of work with my client base, for example, because their older family members can't leave the house or they can't go in to see them either if they're in a nursing home. So I've done a lot of food deliveries and things like that. Just for me, I was more than willing to go to a grocery store and pick up something if I could protect somebody else. Right. And also a lot of the kids live out of state, so they couldn't travel interstate. So they were like, who do I have? Who's my boots on the ground? So that's where I could help and support. So, I would go pick up things, and it was so cute. One day, this girl called me from Virginia, and she said, my mother just wants some rye bread. The nursing home never has rye bread, and it's her favorite. Could you just pick up a couple things and a loaf of rye bread? So I took it over there, and she called me. She says, my mom is so happy. You made her week, and it was a darn loaf of bread, but it was just that something she hadn't had in about a month because nobody could leave or go get it for her. So anyway, I just think if we can take little things, little steps like that and incrementally help other people, and it tickled me to get the phone call that she was so happy, right? All I had to do was go to the grocery store. It's not that big of an inconvenience. I go every week anyway.
The other thing that we can all do is we can all help by tutoring. A lot of with this homeschooling, a lot of parents don't have the wherewithal to provide the right support for their kids at home. Mm-hmm. So I've got a friend, she's a great grandmother, and she's tutoring her little kids long distance because she's in the UK and the kids are in South Africa. And she's tutoring them, and she's helping the mother. So it's a really positive thing that we can all do that.
Yeah, and I think people should think out of the box like that. Is there someone in your family who's got little kids home who she could, they could set one on an iPad or over here with you, and you can help, divide and conquer a little bit, like see where you can help, because I know people that are in small apartments in New York City with 5 and 6 kids, and it's got to be a little bit crazy trying to homeschool all of them on all the different levels and all the different subjects. So yeah, if you have a skill, audience, definitely think about that, how you can reach out. And this fall, there may well be a need for a lot more of that. I know a lot of our schools are really on the fence about what they're going to do here, whether they're going to be in class full time or just a couple days a week or whatever the case. So I think that's definitely an opportunity for sure. So wow, that's such a great idea. So I want to bring up too that Lois has generously offered our viewers a free copy of her ebook today that she has, and it's called Raise Your Vibration and Ignite Your Mojo. So it's all about getting those vibrations raised, and that meaning, you know, elevating your energy, and that's really a huge focus for our event that we're having. We really want to talk about how to get your energy and how to get momentum. So if you'd like a copy of that ebook, the information will be on this page. And also, you can contact Lois for a one-on-one or group coaching session. She'll do a free 30-minute discovery session on how she might be able to help your group or you as an individual with working through resilience and learning about grit and mental toughness and all of these aspects that she works with. And you can also find on her website, which will be listed here, some more information about and some videos that she's done with her clients and friends and wonderful, wonderful speakers that she meets. So that's something that will be available right away as soon as this you watch the video. And are there any, Lois, any final thoughts for our audience about what we've been talking about today?
Just learn to forgive so you can fly free.
Oh, I love that. Forgive yourself, forgive others. That's huge. That's going to be a very impactful statement. And just put that on your bulletin boards today, everyone, and or put it in your phone and remind yourself, because that is really an important thing to remember. Well, I want to thank Lois for her time today, and I want to remind everyone to tune in for our 21 days of Thrive Through Life Change, where we're going to have all the speakers talking about all different sorts of life changes and how to overcome these transitions and have success and energy and a new and improved vision. So this is Jen Hurd and Lois Wagner signing off. Have a great day today, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you, everybody.